Soon after the situation escalated between Ukraine and Russia, various Russian industries saw sanctions imposed on them by the United States and European Union. The sanctions imposed on Russia's commercial aviation industry is by far what is grabbing attention, as these sanctions have the potential to grind the industry to a halt. As per the sanctions imposed by the European Union, aircraft leasing companies have time until March 28, 2022, to wind up their rental contracts in Russia. Based on data from research firm Cirium, there are around 980 passenger jets in service in Russia, of which around 777 are leased. Around 515 of these are leased from foreign firms like AerCap and Air Lease, and their estimated market value is around $10 billion. Due to airspace bans, swift payment transfer issues and concerns that the Russian government could nationalize the aircraft in the country, we have not seen any lessor companies arrange for their aircraft to be flown out of Russia. There have been a couple of cases where aircraft flying for Russian carriers were seized when they operated out of the country. In light of this, Russian carrier Aeroflot halted all of its international operations. Many of Russia's leased aircraft are actually on the Bermudan registry. This is owing to a few reasons such as lower import duties and better safety oversight, which in turn translates to better insurance options too. On March 13, 2022, Bermuda's aviation regulator said it was suspending certification of all Russian-operated aircraft registered in the British Overseas Territory, as it was no longer confident that the airworthiness of these aircraft could be maintained owing to the sanctions on spare parts, which could seriously affect the maintenance of these airplanes. As per regulations, aircraft are not permitted to fly without a certificate of airworthiness, which is issued by the Civil Aviation Authority where the plane is registered. Of the 980 aircraft in Russia, 745 were registered in Bermuda, of which 713 are on lease, as per aviation consulting firm IBA. On March 14, 2022, Russia passed a law which would allow these leased aircraft to be registered in Russia, a move which Western countries were fearing when the sanctions were announced. Re-registering these commercial aircraft in Russia would keep them flying domestically. If they operate internationally, these aircraft could be seized for unlawful deregistration and re-registration. It is illegal for an aircraft to be registered without proof of its deregistration, and the lessor companies need to agree to Russian requests to deregister them from their foreign registries. It is highly unlikely that lessors will agree to this, and some reports claim Russia will hence be breaking the Convention on International Civil Aviation, also called as the Chicago Convention. According to Dr. Donal Hanley, adjunct professor at the Institute of Air and Space Law of McGill University in Montreal, if Russia goes through with registering these aircraft without the consent of the lessors or the state of initial registry, leasing companies may have no choice but to claim for the loss of these aircraft under their insurances. If they are unable to claim insurance, these leasing companies would have to absorb the loss of these aircraft on their own book. Leasing companies spread their portfolio across various countries, and in the case of AerCap, which has around 2,000 aircraft on its books, Russia only accounts for 5% of its contracts. Dr. Hanley was speaking to RTE Radio 1. The most leased aircraft in Russia are the Airbus A320 and Boeing 737. According to a report on Reuters, a source at one of the airlines in Russia expressed that the carrier would hope to avoid registering their aircraft in Russia, and that they would prefer returning them to the leasing companies. The source termed this as kidnapping of the airplanes, and stated the airline would rather not become an accomplice to it. And if you think about it, once this war is over, whenever that is, these airlines will have to start flying internationally, and they will be looking to Western leasing companies again to upgrade or expand their fleet. It is in their best interest that they show their support towards the lessors, rather than re-registering the aircraft, which without consent, is breaking the law. According to this report, a three-way legal battle between airlines, lessors and insurers could last for a decade. According to flight tracking website Flightradar 24, the process of registering the aircraft in Russia has commenced with several airplanes belonging to UT Air, Yakutia, Aeroflot, Nordwind Airlines and Rossiya, sporting new Russian registrations. There are many questions as to what could happen now. Russian carriers have been cut off from insurance markets in the European Union and Britain, and these re-registered aircraft would need to be insured by a Russian company. That would pose significant risk for the new insurer, as these are kidnapped aircraft. Not just that, but the sanctions also apply to spares and maintenance, which mean even if Russia wanted to service these aircraft within the country, they would still not have access to parts and components, which would have to come from Airbus and Boeing. Experts believe that safety could be compromised in this situation. According to a Reuters report, Russia tried to speak with China to obtain spare parts, however, those talks reportedly failed. The report cites Russia now speaking with Turkey and India for providing aircraft spares. According to Russian news agency TASS, the Russian Transport Ministry is drafting a bill that would help airlines until September 2022 and would suspend all planned and unscheduled inspections of carriers. The report also states that third-party firms would be allowed to carry out maintenance on commercial aircraft. The sanctions also apply on new deliveries to airlines in Russia. There are around 35 Boeing aircraft and 27 Airbus aircraft that were scheduled to be delivered to Russian carriers from 2022. Russian carrier Aeroflot also announced recently that it was opening up flights to Armenia, but according to reports, it would choose to fly its Russian-registered Sukhoi superjets to this destination. As the war continues and the deadline for lessors to end their contracts with Russian carriers comes to a close, the future of Russia's commercial aviation industry is in a precarious position. Do you think Russia's private airlines will resist the government and not play a part in re-registering their aircraft? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to follow Squawk Cats.